Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we're going to talk a little bit about remakes and remasters. I had another idea planned for this, but it's not going to work out, and I'll talk about that later on. But let's start off by talking about Actraiser. This is a really good game, and it's one of those Super Nintendo games that really kind of stands out just because of how different it was. It combined two really great ideas. It combined kind of like a SimCity element, and it had some very good platforming. It was probably one of the best platformers that I had played, especially on the Super Nintendo. At least one of the platformers that I was good enough to get far in. It's just one of those games that's just very special. The controls were very smooth, jumping was great, and the attacks were it was very, very good. It was an easy game to get into, and it was an easy game to kind of figure out what's going on and whatnot. And I wanted to bring this game up first just because it's a great way to kind of transition into what a remake is. And I wanted to lay out sort of what this game was at first before I go in and talk a little bit more about Actraiser Renaissance. This game meant an awful lot to me when I was a kid. It was one that I rented very late. A friend of mine had played it before, and he kind of suggested that we rent it. This was in, I almost want to say like late 90s. Yeah, there was a store that was still renting Super Nintendo games back then. We rented it, played it for a while. I liked it so much I went home and tried to find a ROM of it so I could emulate it on my PC. That's how much I really enjoyed this game. Made it all the way to the end of it, with like that crazy boss rush mode that they make you do, and I think that's kind of where I got stuck on it. Later, I played it again when, I think I was at home. Yeah, I was home from the Navy, and I played it again, and I ended up beating it then, so like mid-2000s or so. And then I tried to play it again for a separate video, and I just could not get past the swamp level. So this had a sequel, but that sequel really kind of sucked. It was playable, which is the nicest thing I can say about it, but it just wasn't the same as the first Actraiser. And then recently, they came out with a remake of the game. It's not a remaster, because if it was a remaster, it would just be like a straight translation of the first game, and they would have just updated the graphics, that sort of thing. Instead, what we got was a remake. So, Actraiser Renaissance took the first game, and they kind of expanded on it, in some ways that were good, and in some ways that were not really necessary for the game, but yeah, let's talk a little bit more about it. So I had done a first impressions video on this when it around the time that it came out. I think like a day or two later or something like that. And I talked about how much I liked it. And I talked a little bit about some of the things that annoyed me in it. Overall, I wouldn't say that my opinions changed very much. I still think it's a good game. I just see some of the things in it that I really didn't like, and those they kind of ground on me a little bit more. Like as the game went on, it just got a little bit more annoying. Also, going back and playing the original and then kind of revisiting Renaissance again, I started to see other things that I didn't like. So, from the original time for the first time that I played this, I didn't like the fact that when you sealed the enemy layers, it made you go and do like 30 seconds to a minute of platforming. That I thought was just completely pointless to the game, and it just made it go a lot faster. Sorry, it made it slow down. Like, you were perfectly fine doing the whole, real-time strategy stuff, and then they just kind of grind that to a halt, and they make you do platforming for, a minute or so, for absolutely no reason. If it had just stayed the same with the original, and had you, and just had you watch your guys kind of seal the layer, it would have been fine. I also thought that the jumping was not as good. I don't like the animations for attacking. I think that's kind of screwed up. And I wish that certain things were done better. I didn't like the fact that you had to, save up a lot of stuff in order to kind of upgrade your buildings. I didn't like the fact that they still made you destroy buildings and destroy fields to get them upgraded. I thought that could have been fixed in a different way. I mean, you were already gathering resources to get your stuff upgraded. Why not just do that to kind of get other things built up as well? That was something that I thought they kind of messed up a little bit with. Overall, I thought the remake was very good. I just wish that they had changed some stuff. Like, some stuff that should have been changed from the original when they were kind of going back and fixing things. And there was some stuff that should never have been included. Like, the stupid, monster sealing stuff. I was fine with the tutorial because they had to get a lot of stuff out of the way. Like, they had to explain an awful lot. They added more onto the story, so it was a much longer game. But I think that was to its benefit. They actually gave you a story instead of just, you're God, you're trying to kill Satan, here are a few different levels that you need to fight through. Go get them. I think they did a little bit better job with that. So that was the remake. I talked a little bit about what I thought Actraiser Renaissance did better, what I thought they did worse, and a little bit about the original game Actraiser. Let's talk a little bit about remasters, and to do that, let's talk about Command & Conquer for a little bit. So, this is a really fun real-time strategy game, and it was one that EA decided they needed to remaster. The only thing they did was just soup up the graphics. They didn't really do anything else to it. At least as far as I can tell, they didn't really do anything crazy with it. You can toggle between the original feed, or at least the original graphics, and the new remastered graphics, which is kind of fun. And you're basically doing the same thing you would have done when you played the game back in the 90s. It's pretty awesome. The thing that I really like is, and I know this is me praising EA or whoever did the remaster for EA. I didn't really look into who did it. But they didn't go crazy with it, and they didn't do anything stupid. They kept all of the cutscenes the same. They did everything that they kept everything that I enjoyed about the game the same. That's something that I can say that I really liked. I like the fact that they didn't screw this up. I know there are a lot of examples of bad remasters, especially with the GTA remaster that just looks absolutely horrible. That's an example of doing it wrong. I think this is an example of getting it right. It just looks and it feels like you're playing the original game, which is kind of what you want out of a remaster. When you compare it to a remake, you want something more. You want them to improve upon the game, like they did with Actraiser Renaissance. And hopefully not screw it up too much. Like, I think they didn't screw up Actraiser Renaissance too much. I did see a lot of people complaining about the tutorial mode, which I think is kind of ridiculous, because when you play a lot of other modern games, they have a stupidly long tutorial mode. This one at least lets you learn how to play the game. So, what was the original plan for this, and why did it kind of go off the rails a little bit? The original plan for this was to just go over the game Actraiser. I just wanted to sit down with it, play the game, give my thoughts on it, that sort of thing. And during the course of playing it, I realized that this was one game that I can't finish. Like, it, not because the game was difficult or anything like that, but because I'm no longer good enough to actually beat this game. My skill at playing the game is pretty much gone. Whether it was all pretty much me. I don't know what was going on. Like, my brain knew what I should be doing on certain levels, but just I couldn't work the controller the way that I wanted to. It's nothing wrong or anything like that. It's just that's what was going on while I was playing this. Nothing crazy, nothing anyone should really be concerned about, just me getting a little bit older and can't really pull it off. So I decided to kind of start talking a bit about, remakes and remasters and that sort of thing. So I'm sorry if you wanted more of an in-depth review of Actraiser and kind of going through the different levels, but that wasn't something that I could pull off. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you've made it this far, thank you. And if you liked what you saw and you kind of like my content, please consider subscribing. Anyway, have a great day, everybody, and see you all later. Bye.